Hi, I'm Heather Marie. Welcome to Channel Squared, where we have extraordinary conversations about everyday life topics.
I think you forgot something, Heather.
What?
Cheers!
Welcome to our happy hour.
It's tea time. We thought we would do a special episode today because this is the first time that we've met in real life and we wanted you guys to join us. So we're going to have a casual conversation about how we met. If you guys have questions about us, who we are, what we do, whatever, you can join in. Maybe we'll play some 20 questions while we enjoy our favorite drink.
Exactly.
Yeah. How are you doing today, Heather?
I am doing great. I am just trying to do this without a mouse. So this is a new venue right here.
New venue.
New venue. We're coming to you live from my living room.
Yeah. In your brand new house.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
We have guests.
The plants.
So it looks like people are starting to tune in.
Amazing.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wait for you to ask questions. And in the meantime, we're just going to have a conversation like we do any other time.
That's right. Amazing.
So I guess where should we start? How we met?
Yeah.
Okay, you first.
Okay, well.
Let's see if our stories are the same.
Oh gosh, this is like double jeopardy or something. I don't know. I feel under the gun now. This is a little hot. Okay, well, before I met Heather, I was coaching with a branding coach, and Heather was also coaching with the same branding coach. And then we were part of this big group on Facebook. And then Heather announced that she was doing her first group channeling session. And I saw it and was like, oh my God, I have to go to this. This looks amazing. So I went, I purchased right away because I wanted a session with Heather. And I feel like the rest is kind of history. We just fell in love with each other and became best friends after that. That's pretty much how it happened. Then we decided to do the YouTube channel and work. I hired Heather to coach me on how to channel and, source the information that I was getting. And that helped a whole bunch. So we spent a lot of time together with that. And then we just became friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much sums it up. I think you left out some pieces like.
Oh, I'm not very detail oriented.
That I've joined your program.
That's right.
Not once, but twice.
That's right. Yes.
And we're actually here over there where you can't see her with our other bestie.
Yeah, we have a live audience today.
We have a live audience.
Yeah.
Let's hear some applause from the live audience.
Yeah.
So
she always roots us on. We're very lucky. I feel like I should sing the Three Best Friends song.
You should. Right now. Let's hear it.
Three best friends that anyone could have. That's all you get. That's it. Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Yeah, that was a big one. I think something else that's really cool about Heather and I is astrologically. Is that the right word?
Yeah, astrologically.
Astrologically, that's a big word for a few teas here. Actually, just 3 sips of one. I'm a lightweight. But astrologically, Heather and I are literally the yin to one another's yang. I don't know if you're the yang and I'm the yin or what the difference is, but I'm Cancer.
If we have any astrological watchers right now, let us know if I'm the yin or the yang, if she's the yin or the yang. We'd love to know.
Yeah. My signs are Cancer. And what are those? Are the 3 houses?
No. So you're a Cancer sun, a Cancer moon, and a Cancer rising.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a Capricorn sun, Capricorn moon, and Capricorn rising.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers
to covering the zodiac.
Yeah. So we worked very well together. And I mean, that's why we kind of started the YouTube channel, was because we thought it would be a place to connect with a broader audience, connect with people who are needing what we provide, and just helping the world ascend at this time. And business wise, we work very well together because of the yin and the yang.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
We complete each other.
You complete me. Let us know if you guys have some questions about who we are, where we're from, or anything like that. Where are you originally from?
I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
And I lived there until I was 22, I think.
Yeah.
And then I moved to North Carolina. I moved a couple of more times, ended up in California, and that's where I was living when we met. And I now am in Texas. Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah. She, on the other hand, has sunk in her roots, and that's where she is.
Way down deep.
But you moved other places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you moved away for a while.
Not far from home. I grew up in a small town, I grew up on a small farm just outside of Edmonton, northeast of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And right after high school, I moved to Camrose to go to university. And then I moved to Edmonton, ended up in Sandy Beach, back in, Fort Saskatchewan, Edmonton area. And then my husband and I bought a farm literally 5 miles north of where I grew up and where my parents still live. So I ended up right back where I started. And you know what? That's actually good for me. It's really funny because when I was in high school, I couldn't get away from that place fast enough. I did not appreciate anything that I had there. And I can say that now because I see it. I said to my mom the other day, I don't remember there being this much wildlife. She's like, yeah, you just didn't care. You're 17, you didn't care about all the wildlife and the beautiful things there. But I needed to branch out and go out and see the world to know that that's exactly where I wanted to be, on a farm, just like I grew up.
It's interesting how like moving around sort of does that.
Yeah.
It's like you can, be in one place, and then once you leave that place, you suddenly see it in a completely different light when you return to it, if you're returning to it, obviously for a good reason. But, for me, moving around, it was like super liberating. It really taught me a lot about independence. And so if you're a young person watching this and you're, thinking about whether or not you want to move, you can always go home. Your parents will always welcome you back.
Yeah,
hopefully. And if not, come here, we'll welcome you.
That's right. Absolutely.
But I think that was a really big turning point in my life, was like breaking away from the like the glass house, right? Like I was in this, really safe place with my family. And then like going outside of that, it was really like helped me gain my independence, and now, like having moved around so much, it's not as big of a deal to move. It's like I can just kind of move. And it's like, oh, a new adventure.
A new adventure. I find that traveling is like that for me. That, I've grown so much because I have traveled so much in, my later 20s or early 20s, late 20s into my 30s. But just learning to go out on your own, I felt like I was really innocent or naive, maybe ignorant of a lot of things, because I grew up in a town of like 1,000 people. Like I graduated with 52 people.
Wow.
And I was one of them. Yeah. So that's 51 crazy. Other people. That's it. And that was a huge class for that school. Yeah. So I came from a very, very small place, and I, felt like I was really sheltered at that time. Yeah.
So let's do an audio check just to make sure that you're capturing us. So those of you that are watching, let us know that you can hear us okay. Or if we're a little bit quiet or anything like that, just drop it in the chat and let us know, because we'd hate to have this whole conversation and you not even get to hear it.
That's right.
Yeah. I can't believe you're here.
I know.
This is amazing.
This is crazy. This is the first time Heather and I have met in the flesh and blood. And it's crazy because we connected 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah. It's been about 2 years, almost 3 years. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy. We are for the first time today.
Yeah. crazy that you can have such a close connection with somebody and never be in the same room physically with them. Before the pandemic and COVID and all of that stuff, before this relationship, I never would have thought that was possible, to be, you know, best friends with somebody that lives so far away and that you've never truly met in the flesh. But it can happen.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
And thank you, Vicky, for verifying that we've got good audio. Yeah, it's funny because my husband, he plays video games. And when we first started dating, I was like, he plays video games like every week, like this is a thing. And as I started to like hear him having like, friendships and conversations and things with people online, I was like, I couldn't fully wrap my head around the fact of having close friendships with people that you hadn't actually met in person until you.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I love her. She's like my sister. I'm like, it would be like, hey, Heather, come help me bury the bodies. And I'd be like, I'm on my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's crazy. Maybe we should talk about some of the things that were pretty crazy that were similar in our pasts, like between us. That'd be
okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we were both into musical theater.
Yeah, we were both in the musical theater. I forgot about that one.
Like a huge
part of our lives.
Yeah. Like you went to school.
Yeah, I went to like musical theater schools.
Yeah, and I competed when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one trophy.
I have one trophy, but I think it might be for honor roll. And I think it was just because I learned very quickly that you have to be the favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I never made the honor roll. Maybe for gym or something. Even
That's
gym,
funny.
I didn't like gym.
That's funny.
It's crazy. Yeah, but we were both into musical theater and singing and acting and that kind of stuff. What else?
Gosh, I know we've gone over this so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, our relationships that we've had in our romantic partnerships have been very similar.
Yep.
The types of men that we gravitated to, which is really interesting, being on the opposite side of the zodiacs. We still kind of
picked dirtbags.
Pickers were broken at a young age.
Yes. However, even just like meeting our partners in the most unique and interesting ways, like Nate, my husband, he just walked into my office one day for a presentation, and you and Quinn, you guys met at a shaman retreat, right?
Yep, a shaman workshop.
Yeah, just when it was time, they both showed up for us.
Yep. What's funny is, I don't know, like I do actually probably know, I've just forgotten at the moment, but when you met Nate, like for me, when I met Quinn, I was in this place where I just didn't want really to be, I was just fine. Like I was good. I didn't really need anybody, didn't really want anybody. And my mom actually was like, if you don't start dating, I'm going to make an online profile for you. And I'm going to just go ahead and set you up with dates. And I thought, oh God.
That is the worst threat.
Seriously. So lucky for me, I didn't have to endure that with my mother, because I met Quinn that very weekend, actually. Like my mom and I had this discussion on my way to the workshop where I met Quinn. But, I think that it's funny how in relationships, when you like meet someone that is really meaningful in your life, it's usually when you're not looking.
Yep. It was the same for me. I was just focusing on being happy with me. And I had gone through a breakup, I don't know, 2-3 weeks before I met Nate. So I went through a period of devastation, and then just really leaned into me and, who am I? Who do I want to be? And what makes me happy, and focusing on those things and just healing that part of me. And that's when he showed up.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm trying to do this without a mouse, y'all. So like, sorry if it's like looks like I'm looking all over. It's because I am. I have to look down here for the mouse.
It's all good. It's the tea.
It's the tea.
If you guys have questions for us, just drop them in the chat. This is just going to be a casual conversation about who we are. We thought about playing 20 questions.
Yeah. 20 questions for sure. That means you. So those of you that are watching, give us some questions and we will answer them for you.
Or, you know, we could start thinking of questions. If nobody has any questions,
yes,
we could start
definitely
making up random questions. Oh man, it's so incredible to be with you here in the flesh.
Yeah, I know, it's so crazy.
Texas.
I can't even believe it. Like, you guys, it was crazy. Like at the airport, I was like literally like coming out of my skin with excitement. Like, I'm like, where are you? I don't see you. And they're like, it's because we're on the other side of the building. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I'm like zooming around. You know?
We're just so excited.
Exactly. I think I like practically tackled you guys with I'm like, yeah.
But we were in the air, we were in the air, and Jackie, Harv, and I are sitting like in a row or whatever, and they announced like on the speakers, you know, where we've got 20 minutes before we land, and Jackie was in the aisle seat and I was in the window and Harv was between us, and I like leaned forward and looked over and was like to Jackie. We were just so excited to be here today, to be here for the week, and just, you know, spend some time with Heather and Quinn and be in Texas. It's beautiful here, really hot.
It is hot. I'm like sitting here roasting.
Yeah.
Like I have sweat running down my back, y'all.
Are you, I know you grew up in hot weather, but are you a hot weather fan? Like, is this something that you wanted?
You know, okay, no, I don't love hot weather. Let's just be honest. I don't love hot weather. I do, however, love the sun. I do love having a suntan, and I do love the swimming pool.
Yes.
But I don't actually like to feel hot. Like right now, I'm like melting, which I'm not really sure why. She's wearing a sweater.
I'm wearing a sweater.
Are you hot?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think because you're sucking up all the air there. The vent is right over her, and I'm over here in the hot seat, melting. Okay, so we have some questions.
All right. Okay.
All right, so Victoria, what is the craziest thing or experience y'all have had?
Oh my
We can tell where she's from.
Yeah.
Y'all.
I love it, Victoria. I feel like this question is really broad, like crazy experience with spirituality, craziest experience in life. Like we could go 100 different ways with this one question.
I think that Kat's question of what is your favorite spiritual experience so far? So let's make Victoria's question. Oh, what has been your thoughts about? Oh, that's a different one.
Okay.
Okay. So what is the craziest thing or experience y'all have had? Y'all.
I like accents. Craziest experience. Okay. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Craziest experience of my entire lifetime was years and years ago. I was a safety person in the oil fields, and I was coming to New Orleans, or going to New Orleans to do an audit on the levee wall. And it was the first time that I ever, second time I had ever traveled outside of the country. First time I was ever going without like a loved one or somebody that could take care of me. And again, I was pretty sheltered in life, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I was just pretty innocent because I grew up in a very small town. So driving in the city where we live next to, which is Edmonton, which has like 1 million people or just under 1 million people, was terrifying. Like I would hyperventilate. And the craziest thing that happened was I get to the airport and my boss was supposed to be meeting me there. We were going to go together, and I'm in lineup and I don't see him anywhere. And I'm, you know, I've passed security and all of that. And I'm about to get on the plane, and he calls me and he's like, I'm sorry, I missed this flight, because he got there too late. He screwed up the time, whatever. And he's like, I'll meet you. I think our layover was in Dallas. It was somewhere in Texas. And I'm like, okay, great, whatever. He'll be there. Amazing, wonderful. I get to Texas. I'm just have a layover. So I'm staying in the airport. Back then I used to smoke. So I went to like the smoking room back when they had them and probably smoked a pack of cigarettes because I was so afraid of being by myself. Like I'm by myself in this giant airport. I don't know where I'm supposed to go or what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to get lost. Like I'm from a town of 1,000 people. Like this is not normal for me. And then I remember being in lineup to get on the plane to go to New Orleans. And it was this giant plane. Like there was so many seats and it was pretty much empty. And my boss missed that one too. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to New Orleans by myself. This is amazing. And I decide early on in the flight, like the first 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute, I'm like, I'm just going to get really drunk. I'm just going to get drunk and it'll be fine. And then it dawns on me that I have to drive. And I start having a panic attack, because I'm going to have to drive from the airport to Metairie, where our hotel was. And I was on it like international, like interstates. I don't know. Everything seemed so big. And I was terrified to ask my boss if I could get the GPS. I finally make it to my hotel room. Sunday, we were supposed to go on a city and cemetery tour, and I was going to bail. I was so scared at that point of being by myself and so just introverted, I guess, that I ate dinner at my hotel by myself because I didn't want to go out. And it cost me $30 to get it delivered to my hotel.
Wow.
It was ridiculous, but I ate by myself because I was terrified. And then my boss calls me and says, we have the tickets booked for the city and cemetery tour. You have to go. And I'm like, no. And then he convinces me that they pick me up at the hotel and all I have to do is wake up and get on the bus. And I'm like, okay, I commit to that. And, my word is my bond. When I say that I'm going to do something, I do it. So I get up the next morning and then I'm like checking all of the documents and I realize that they don't pick me up at my hotel. But the hotel is in Metairie. It's not downtown New Orleans. So I'm going to be okay. It's not that big. I can drive there. So then I get lost in Metairie. I pull over and ask somebody that's mowing their lawn, where the Marriott is. And they're like, downtown New Orleans. Like, okay, I'm committed. It got to the point where I was driving around downtown New Orleans and the bus driver for the tour called me and was like, where are you? And I'm like, I can't find parking. He's like, where are you? Like, I don't know. There's a flamingo in front of me. He's like, park there. I'll come pick you up. Seriously, that happened. So I got on the bus. I went to the tour. It was amazing. On the drive home, I got lost so many times, but at the end of the day, when I got back to my hotel and I finally met up with my boss, I felt like I was a completely new person. I had experienced, tribulation or whatever after
trauma,
exactly,
trauma.
right, and triumph. Like I didn't die. I was okay, and I had fun. I had a great experience, and it just really grew me. So that was the craziest thing that I had ever experienced because it was the first time that I really got out of my comfort zone and grew. Like
I think that it's sort of funny because when we first read this question, you went first, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like I kind of wah, Heather's boring.
My life is boring.
But it's funny because like when I think about one of the craziest things that ever happened to me involves an airplane, right? And so like the very first flight I ever took, I think I was maybe 16 years old. I had my driver's license for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And I jumped on a plane to go visit my sister, who at the time was living in Mississippi. And when we got on the plane, somehow there was some kind of notification that I was a minor traveling alone, because the flight attendants were like, here, honey, do you need something? I mean, I look very young for my age, and I've always looked very young for my age. So at 16, I probably looked like I was 9 or something. And so it was this whole ordeal. And like, until I got to Dallas, Fort Worth. And then it was like, oh, she's all good, all on her own. I'm walking around this gigantic airport, had never even been in an airport before. That was my very first plane ride. And so I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I go? Fortunately, the little trolley guy was driving around. He picked me up and took me over to the gate.
Aww.
Where they proceeded to walk us out onto the tarmac to get into like this little 12 passenger crop duster. And as we are taking off, we like run into something, I don't know, a bird, and there's like feathers that suddenly went everywhere, and it's the ones with the little propellers, right?
Oh
And
no.
so they decided that we were just going to continue going even though we ran into this thing. And as we were going up, we kind of like, when we hit the thing, we dropped back down, and the oxygen masks fell out of the thing. And I was like, oh my God, like, give me that fucking thing. I'm like, on my face. I'm like, oh my God, what did she say? What did she say? You know, again, this is my second flight, right? So I went from huge airplane to huge airport
Tiny.
to tiny crop duster with the little things falling out of the thing. And after that, I was like, I don't think flying's for me. I don't think flying's for me. But, you know, I got to the other side. I made it to Mississippi. And when I visited my sister, the first thing I did was I promptly backed her husband's truck out of the driveway and ran right over her mailbox and the across the street neighbor's mailbox. So I did
all in one shot.
All in one shot.
Did you just hit the gas?
Reverse, and I said, "Brr."
I'm out of here.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, I think that's probably the craziest thing that I can think of off the top of my head. I've actually kind of had some crazy shit, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
We
Kat,
can go into more detail
Yeah,
later if we
totally.
have time.
Yeah. So Kat says, what is your favorite spiritual experience so far? Your favorite spiritual
Ooh.
experience? Ooh, I'm gonna have to think about that one.
I feel that this is a difficult question
Mhm.
because as you evolve, there's a new level of, I'm going to say it, coolness, like craziness, favorite. What would be my favorite today, you know, back in 2019 would be something completely different. But I would say there's two for me that come to mind right away.
Mhm.
And it's not like the crazy stories, but the first one would, because I have a few crazy stories about weird stuff that has happened that was really cool. But one of my first spiritual experiences was going to a retreat in Rome, and we were playing these energy games, and it wasn't so much anything that happened, it was just more the way that I felt after we had played these energy games. It was just, I felt like I was walking on a cloud, like cloud nine. I was so excited and so happy. It just, everything felt really amazing, euphoric, really. So that was one of my favorites. And then when I started to channel with Heather, like every time that we would hop on a call to learn, well, I was learning, she was teaching me to do whatever, to source guides, to tune my channel, all of that stuff, something crazy would happen. So I can't even tell you. Like there was one time, there is a chief, an Indian chief that watches over my land, like where my husband and I live. And I was looking in the Zoom camera on my laptop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Heather, do you see that? There's like something directly behind my right shoulder. And she's like, oh yeah, totally. It was this chief. He was coming to check on me and, you know, wanted to be a part of the process. But things like that happened over and over again. So those would be kind of my top two.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to answer that question. That's a really good question, Kat, because there, you know, like Jody said, there's so many experiences that it's like each one is like equally as awesome as like the last one. It's like they just get better and better.
Yeah.
You know, I think that I really appreciated and like enjoyed the shaman work that I did. That was super cool. Like, you know, recovering the aspects of me and, you know, healing those, you know, past life regressions, I always thought were really interesting just to see some of the crazy shit my soul's been through. I think though, like one of the coolest things that I did was probably my soul tattoo. That was super cool. Like getting that, drawing it out, and you know, I tattooed it on myself. Because, you know, anytime you get a tattoo, you take on a piece of the energy of the artist. So whoever is actually tattooing you, their energy gets embedded into you. So choose your artist wisely, everybody.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's been actually studies about that, believe it or not. So I was not about to let someone else's greasy, hairy energy get in my body. So I figured
greasy, hairy energy.
greasy area,
Got it.
because all tattoo artists are like big, burly, fat men with lots of body hair, right? That's terrible. I know that's not true. I come from a tattoo industry, so we know that's not true. But that was really cool, and I feel like that was very like empowering for my, I'm going to call it a craft, right? Like my spiritual craft, my spiritual development. That was a really big thing for me. So I'd have to say, if I had to pick my favorite, that might be it. But again, God, I've had so many, like having like clients having breakthroughs. Oh my God, that's like the best, most juicy thing. I'm like, oh, there it is. Now I have to lick you because it's so great. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like I just love it so much.
No licking.
No.
Heather.
Now
we know what happens when we get a cocktail and Heather. Right. All right. Next up, Giggly Jody. Can you tell us more about these soul tattoos? Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, amazing. Well, Heather does these soul tattoos where you can speak to it better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, every symbol has a soul that represents it and represents its path and its experiences and why it's here, or like what its whole purpose in its development is. And so there's a lot of symbology in that symbol, right? Of course, it's a symbol. So the thing is that everybody's is uniquely different. Nobody has the same one. The imagery is not what you see on, tarot cards. It's not necessarily spiritual like symbology. I know that like the term soul tattoo has been used by other people. But if you look at what the tattoo actually is, it's more like a spiritual tattoo where someone maybe does like a card reading and then they're like, oh, this lovely lavender and like the cups and the hands and the this and that, and it's not like that. All of the soul tattoos that I have done, they have been very specific and unique to the individual, and it's like the soul's fingerprint,
right?
Like a soul print.
Like a soul print. So Heather channels what this symbol looks like for someone. And I think a key in this is if they're ready to receive it, because it's significant having this tattooed on you. Right. Why is it significant?
Well, because it basically, it anchors you into both realms, right? So it anchors your physical to the spiritual. And so if you're spiritually not ready to receive it, it's going to align you into that place. And so if you're not ready for it, that could come as, you being in the tower. It could be ego death. It could be a complete upheaval and course correction for your, current state. So they're kind of a big deal. So I like to make sure that everybody that receives one is in a place where they can actually receive it, and it's not going to be this jarring course correction if we actually put it on you. So I did have a woman one time who I did one with, and she wasn't ready for it, and she ended up covering it up, which was kind of shocking because it was so beautiful. But anyway,
you're not ready. You're not ready.
You're not ready. You're not ready.
Yeah. P.S. I'm hoping that she'll give me mine this week.
Yep, we'll find out.
We'll find out. Just totally unprepared. Hey, Heather, want to give me a tattoo?
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, little love heart on your hind end.
Yeah. Sure. We're all getting tattoos.
Everybody gets a tattoo.
Everybody gets a tattoo. We should probably not do this while drinking.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
But if we did, it would be really good.
It would be fun. Maybe that's something we should videotape for our Instagram channel or something like that.
The love heart on your hiney?
Well, no. Not that. Okay. Amazing. Next question.
Next question. Okay. So next question. What has been your thoughts what has been your thoughts about manifestation before you were actually spiritual woke? LOL. Yes, because woke and spiritually woke is different.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like this question is also a tough one because of the evolutionary aspect of, being human. So I feel like there's been a lot of evolution for me around this topic from, first understanding that energy was a thing and your mindset was a thing. That was a big deal for me, understanding that your mindset and your energy played a part in what you're creating and that you had control over what you were creating. And I think from there, for me, it went to this place of really beating myself up, getting out the big whacking stick, like, you should know better, whack. You should have done better, whack. Yeah, exactly. Like, you create your own reality. You're just such an asshole. I don't know. Like, I was really hard on myself when I first learned about it. And I would take concepts that I would learn and use them as a beating stick. Some ones that come to mind right away are responsibility is your ability to respond. And I thought for me that meant that I couldn't feel anything or react to anything. Like, I had to be perfect. And then, you're creating your own reality. So when my reality was showing up in a way that I didn't want, it meant that I did something wrong, that I needed to grow in some way, but in a negative way. Like, I wasn't there yet, which was also seeding this reality that I had in front of me of I wasn't where I wanted to be. So that's kind of where I had gone with it at the beginning. And I think the biggest transformation for me was just really allowing myself to feel those feelings and give myself that grace and realize that it's an evolution and that there's so much to be said about how far you've come. That's really important, those milestones. Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, manifestation didn't really sink in until I woke up. So, and when I like woke up and realized, wow, this is actually a thing, I was planting and digging up my seeds. And I did that a lot for years, actually. It's like, I'd be like, I'm creating this, okay, plant my seed. And then I'm like, oh, wait, and then I'm like, is it growing yet? Is it growing yet? Is it growing yet? Is it growing yet? And then finally,
I don't see it. I don't see it.
Exactly. And then I got so hyper focused on being like so exact and so precise. And then that was a whole nother thing, right? Because it slowed the process down. Instead of letting the universe bring it to me however the universe saw fit, I was like, I want it like this with this color eyes and this color paint and this color of that, right? And like, I was so specific that I never allowed the universe to work its magic. So now I have become much more loose with it. It's like, when I think about something that I want to have or experience, I put the thought in my mind, I feel how it would feel to have it. And then it's weird. It's like I almost visualize me putting it like into an envelope and like sending it off with a little heart on it to the universe. And I'm like, you take care of that, thanks. And then I just go on living my life. And then I wait for it to show up. And one of the things that I think is really important to remember is that if it is meant for you, it will be for you. Like, if you're meant to have that, it's going to show up in your experience one way or another. It's going to show up. So, and I didn't really even, in full transparency, see exactly how that was until we made the move here and we bought this house, because everything that I was doing in California to try to create a new reality was not working. I just kept manifesting, meditating, trying to, grow lima beans in a lava rock, and it just doesn't work. Right. And so when when we got ready to move here, this was meant for us, right? This was answering many manifestations that I had put into action, and they just fell right into place, one right after the other. And it was because this is a much more aligned path to the bigger picture of what my husband and I want to create.
Mhm.
So I think that, when it comes to manifesting, it's kind of that whole phrase of get out of your own way is real, like put it out there, and put it out there loosely so that the universe can bring it in. And it may look differently than what you maybe had fully imagined, but just go with it and be grateful for what actually shows up so that more can come.
Mhm.
Right?
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. We manifested this trip.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. We were supposed to come, my husband and I were supposed to come for a visit in September, and it just didn't, last year, and it didn't align. And then all of a sudden we just said, hey, we want to go meet Heather and Quinn. And I was talking with Jackie and Harv, and Jackie and I were like, let's do it. So we just picked dates, and we just trusted that we were going to be able to move fluidly through the border and that the flights would align and everything would come together that we needed to. And it did. Here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Cheers. Okay, so Kat has a question. What is a lesson you've learned that was impactful for you?
Oh, like my whole life. Like,
yeah, right. It's like one series of lessons after the other.
Oh man, yeah. I feel like I'm
going to answer this first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually have two lessons. The first lesson that was really impactful for me was about self-worth. That was a really big lesson for me. And so I want to talk about like relationships and how many times relationships are a direct link to learning the lesson of worth. The phrase of, people will treat you how you allow them to treat you, right? maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Maybe people treat you this way so that you know how to treat yourself.
Yeah.
It's not that you allow them necessarily to treat you that way. It's that they treat you how you treat you. So that was a really big lesson for me, and it took several relationships for me to finally learn that one. And it was very painful. It was very painful to be in romantic relationships, friendships that were meaningless, even though like I worked so hard to like be a good friend and show up for the friend. And and it didn't seem to matter what I did. It was still like there was never that reciprocal love, right? It was like I was loving and they were like, thanks, see you later, when it's convenient for me. And so I think that was a really meaningful and impactful lesson. And the other one is staying too long at the party. So, for those of you, I think all of you that are watching right now, live, know that I had a previous business, and it during COVID got shut down. And even before then, the business was struggling a little. And I remember my father-in-law asking me, Heather, how long are you going to bleed before you seal the wound? And that was such a profound moment in my life, because I was like, I was spending more in my business than I was making. And it was it was a terrible place to be, and I was having, this financial nightmare that I was living in. And I hated everything about that part of my life. And so when he asked me that, it was like, but I still didn't quit. I was like, never, ever, ever give up, right? This was the mantra, never give up. Work hard, put your nose to the grindstone, work more hours. And this is probably totally grating your soul because this is what you teach is you don't have to work that freaking hard, people. Let it all come to you, right? But the thing is like the place that I was in at that time, it was like, even though he said the words and I heard them and they were like, wow, that was a huge impact, it didn't really hit me until the day that I actually closed my doors, which I didn't actually do until I moved out of state. And now that the doors are closed, I'm like, oh,
feels good.
it feels so good. Yeah. And I'm like, dang, if I would have done this 3 years ago, I probably would be in a completely different place today. Maybe not. We'll never know, but I think that, I think it's really important to know like when to leave the party. Like, don't stick around in something that's not serving you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you probably stayed because of this false belief of it was going to be a failure and that you shouldn't quit, because if you quit, then it means X, Y, and Z about you. And a lot of times we get trapped in that belief system and we stay for far too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that, like working so hard to hang on to something that isn't, that your like soul isn't in,
mm-hmm.
People who work in that environment with you, they know your soul isn't in it. When the pandemic closed my business and I, did prohibition skincare and prohibition permanent makeup, I couldn't get people to come back. And it was because I believe that they knew my soul wasn't in it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I had just overstayed my welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you?
Whew. Those were good. How do I follow up with that? Oh man. Again, I feel like I've had tons of impactful lessons. I think one of the most impactful lessons I had was with my family. I grew up in a family where my dad was kind of like the all-star. Everybody knew who Wayne Shep was. Everybody loved him. Like, I adore my father. He can, bring crowds together and like move people. And he's got so many of these great qualities. And as my brother and I have 3 siblings. I'm one of 4, but my sisters are older than my brother and I. My brother and I are 14 months apart. So we're super close in age. Everybody thought we were twins because our names are very similar. Jody, Cody, and he failed grade 1. So we were in the same class from grade 1 all the way through. So everybody thought we were twins. And I had this complex, really this huge chip on my shoulder that, my brother got all the attention and I adore my brother as well. And he's so good at things. He's just naturally good with people and naturally good at motivating people and getting people to, come and help out with things. And everybody wants to be around him. He's the life of the party. And he was a rodeo clown and he was so cool. And I just wanted to be like him. And for a really long time, I was trying to, prove to my parents that I was good enough and that, that they could be proud of me. And it was always this competition between me and Cody. And I never felt like I ever really measured up. I always thought that I, fell short. And I always felt like, everybody thought of me as Cody's sister or Wayne's daughter. I was never truly my own person. And I was never really as good as him. And, when I would hang out with my dad, obviously my dad is like the apple of my eye. But when I'd hang out with my dad, it would always be like, oh, Cody this and Cody that. And, like, oh, I want to do this with Cody and I want to do that. And, it would frustrate me. And I felt I felt really like I was left out and left behind, and that I wasn't good enough. And there was a lot of feelings around this. And I started to really work on my relationship with myself and that self-worth piece that you were
Mhm,
talking about,
mhm.
Heather. And I started to work on the relationship that I had with my dad and my brother, and really exploring those feelings. And a lot of it came from this belief system that, they can have all of those things and it means that I can't. The greater that they are, the less I am, which isn't true. But I remember sitting at this barbecue. We had a barbecue. My parents have this like town in their back 40, and there's like an old like Western saloon and a big fire pit and whatever. And there was a bunch of people there, and I was going through all of this stuff of learning all of this and exploring these feelings. And I remember sitting there, and my dad was just off to the corner, like he was behind me, and he was talking to this other gentleman. And he had said to this guy, he was talking about my brother. And this is when I'd usually be like triggered, like daggers, like, "Ah, he's not even here and he's stealing the show." And like this jealousy would emerge. And in that moment, I just took a breath and I was like, okay. And I just listened to what they were saying. And my dad proceeded to talk about, how when he was younger, he wanted to race chuck wagons, and he was racing chuck wagons. And then when he had kids, he stopped because it was pretty dangerous. So he started announcing. And then he always had this vision in his mind that when he retired, he would go back to racing, and he would have this, automated rig, and everything would be so easy, and these beautiful horses and everything. And, he was telling this guy that sometimes you can't, you have this intention of doing something, but once you get there, you're not the same person, or your body isn't the same anymore. And the things you thought you could do, you can't. And that was his experience. He didn't even want to race horses anymore, and his body wouldn't be able to do that. And then he said something that just like pretty much struck me off my chair. He said, "I got to relive my dream through my son Cody, and as Cody did it, I got to live my dreams all over again, and it was so incredibly special." And in that moment, I realized that it had nothing to do with me at all. It was that it was a man, really a man, an individual living his dreams through someone else that's close to him. And because it was his son and they're both males and stuff like that, he could identify with him a whole lot more. And it meant nothing about me. It had to do with him. And it was this moment of enlightening for me. I could finally let it go. And I remember talking to my dad about it after, and really opening up and saying, I obviously felt really jealous of my brother and all of these things. And obviously he knew. And he had said to me in that moment too, when we were having this in-depth conversation, I don't know what you're trying to prove or who you're trying to prove it for, but you're good enough for me. I just want you to know that.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was this huge thing for me, because I felt like I was trying to be good enough for my dad, to be good enough for my parents. And in that moment, I could really see that I was good enough, and that there was nothing that I needed to do, and that I didn't have to work so hard to please them, that, he was proud of me either way. And I could really focus on me. And then again, realizing that it had nothing to do with my brother. And it's come so far circle, or so far from that I was just doing a podcast the other day, and I was talking about this, and just talking about how there's this vast realization that just because someone else is great in your life doesn't mean that it takes anything away from you, doesn't mean that you're any less great. And in saying those words, it was really resonating. All the things that I adore about my brother and my dad, I have all of those same qualities, which is amazing. And some of them are just in different ways, but we're kind of mirrors of one another, and that's just really special.
Well, and I think that that's such a big thing, right? And I think that people in general struggle with this, whether it be in their family or even on social media.
Yeah.
Social media is a perfect example of this, right? People comparing themselves to what somebody else has, what somebody else is doing, and I think that you kind of touched light on that in your story, that everybody is unique, everybody is special, everybody can be an individual.
Yeah.
You know, you can be part of a collective and still be you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you bring something so special to it because there's only one of you.
100%. And just because somebody else is shining in this moment doesn't mean that you're not equally as shiny in that moment too. People are seeing you.
Yep.
If you allow yourself to be seen. That was a big thing for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It felt good to let it go, to not feel this jealousy that I had towards my brother anymore, and to just accept that he is great and I adore him. And that's how I love. When people are in my circle and I care about them, I love very deeply and I adore them. And it doesn't take away anything from me. They can be great and I can be great sitting in the seat next to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, I think all siblings can need to hear that and like absorb that. So if any of you are siblings, take that in for just a minute, because I think that's really important. We have time for one more question. If anybody wants to drop it in the chat. Wow, look at that. 7 watching.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah. I have another impactful lesson that I've learned since nobody asked a question yet. Another thing that has impacted my life for the better is having vulnerable conversations. I always thought that I needed to be like the tough one, the strong one. I needed to hold everyone up, and that I couldn't show emotion or, say what's on my heart. And I lived my life like that for a long time. And then when I started to open up, I started to see things shift. And I found that it's a superpower. When you truly speak what's on your heart and you are vulnerable and you just allow it to come out in whatever form you can. And I think we get better at this as we practice this. But if you just open up and tell people what you're afraid of, or whatever, if you're, working with someone one-on-one, or, any situation, your spouse, that has been the greatest thing for my marriage. Opening up and saying, like, this is what I'm afraid of. And this is what's bothering me right now, and just like laying my heart out there. And thank God I have a wonderful spouse. But even using that principle inside of my business, opening up to people, it's a magical concept that once you start practicing it, it will completely change your life.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things I think that people forget is that everybody else in the room is more afraid of you than you are of them. So when you are standing there in front of a room full of people about to give some presentation, or you are about to have what could be a difficult conversation with somebody that you care about, they are more afraid of what you're going to say, do, and behave than you are of them. And I think that if you have to have these types of conversations, these vulnerable conversations, just remember that they're scared too.
Yeah.
They don't know what you're about to say to them. You say, honey, I need to talk to you about something. And their brain instantly goes to, oh my God, she's leaving me. There's somebody else. There's this, there's that. What is going to come out of her mouth right now? And really it's, do you think you could put your dishes in the dishwasher? Because every time I see that coffee cup, I want to murder you. Right? So, the thing is like, I think it's having the vulnerable conversations. Not only does it allow you to grow, but it allows the person you're having the conversation with to see you differently.
Yeah.
And that viewpoint is so beautiful. The beauty is in the vulnerability.
Yeah,
it's not in being strong.
No, or perfect. Seeing that somebody is, authentic and real, and, like we're having a couple beverages and we've swore a few different times. Oops. Right now. I sang to you at the beginning. If you missed it, wait till the replay comes out. But just being authentically yourself and really showing up in that space, there's power. Even when you mess up, especially when you mess up, or you mess up, I'm going to put it in quotation marks, because when somebody, when I watch other people do that, I'm like, wow, they showed up and they were unapologetic for, falling on their face. And that encourages me to get out there and do something that's harder that I am afraid of. So I want you to think about that when you're doing something hard, or when you fall on your face and you're afraid to show somebody that, you're going through something or being vulnerable. Then, I want you to think about that and think about how many people need to see that side of you, and see that even though, you're going through something, you still show up, and you're not afraid to talk about it, and how courageous you are, because it gives other people courage too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wow, we just went way deep, considering that we're having tea.
It's delicious.
So, this was so fun.
This was so fun.
Super fun. Thank you all for coming and having tea with us today. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button.
Yes.
If you want to see more of this, you better subscribe or you're going to miss it.
And share with all of your friends.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for being here today. We truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. Thanks for hanging out with us today and having some tea. And we love you. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation today.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, bye.
Bye.